Hi everyone. Well, harvest isn't that far away and we're going to basically be processing these red grapes behind me first, well before the Bacchus or the Orion grapes that we've got, because these ones are really not that far away, to be honest. So what we're going to do in this video is just to run through the equipment that I've got that I'm going to be using to turn these grapes into wine. Now, the red grapes are going to be treated slightly differently to the white grapes in that they're going to be fermented with the skin and the pips on them in open bins essentially. And then after fermentation has taken place, that's when we're going to press them, and also it will then go through a secondary fermentation to convert all those sort of malic acids, which are the sort of sharp appley acids, into the more smoother lactic acids, which is what we really want in red wine. So the first piece of equipment that I need is a grape destemmer. Now the one which we've got is really good, and if you click on the video up here, I think, or it could be up here, but it's above me anyway, there's a really good improvement, I hope, that I've made to it, because last year we did find we had one or two issues with it. That said, if it works this year, it'll be fantastic, because what it does is it crushes the grapes that you've just picked off the vine, and it also, more importantly, gets rid of all those stems. If you're trying to do that by hand, it would be really time consuming. So this actually, even though we did have a few problems with it last year, did save an awful lot of time. Now, from the grape destemmer, I need to put it into some kind of container where the primary fermentation is going to take place. This is where red wine and white wine differs slightly, because the red wine undergoes its fermentation essentially in an open barrel or open container, and I haven't yet got those containers. Lots of people use the sort of 200 litre or 120 litre blue food barrels that seem to be ubiquitous all over the place. Lots of channels that I've seen on YouTube use them, for example, to great success. Or I could go down some slightly flatter, more open containers, and I could actually rest the destemmer on the sides of that and just have the grapes just falling directly into it. I'm going to just have to have a look around and see what I can get hold of. But that's one thing on my shopping list anyway. Okay, after the red wine's fermented, hopefully for around about 10, 12, 14 days, I'm not sure, but anyway, after it's finished, then it's time to press it, and hopefully all that colour, all the tannins, all the flavour and everything has been imparted from the skins and the pips and things like that and gone into the juice. But we've got to get rid of all the skins, so the next thing is to press it. And this is where the equipment for white wine and red wine start to marry up, because we're going to use exactly the same press as we use for the white grapes, and that's our HydroPress here. The HydroPress is a really clever little thing, really. It's this is not the biggest one you can get bigger ones, but essentially if I take the top off like that, inside there's a flexible sort of what can only be described as a bladder, really. It's a balloon that blows up under normal mains water pressure. You put all your grape juice and your skins and the pips in here. If it's white wine, then you're pressing it straight off the after you've destemmed it. But with red wine, we're going to do it after fermentation. So we're putting everything in here. We're put the lid back on, blow up the balloon inside, and it presses all that against the sides here, and the juice runs out, flows down the outside and out through the hole at the bottom. It's a really clever design. It works fantastically well, and after you've got all the juice extracted, you just lift up the side here, and you can just peel off all the it won't be dry, but it's sort of compacted grape skins and things like that. So we're going to be using the HydroPress again this year, and it just makes life a lot easier rather than the sort of manual crank sort of compression type presses that you can sometimes see. And yeah, this is a good bit of kit. Okay, coming down below the press, we've got basically three things of interest. We've got the water inlet here on a stopcock, a pressure gauge which tells you what basically your mains water pressure is, which is around about 3 bar, and that's ample for the press here. And then you've got the outlet stopcock to get rid of all the water that's gone into the balloon inside there, and then you're ready to start again on the next batch. So after you've pressed it, you then need to put it in a container where it will undergo its secondary fermentation, which is the malolactic fermentation, which converts the malic acid into the nice, smoother, creamier lactic acid. And I'm going to do that in this tank. Okay, this is exactly the same tank that we use for white wine fermentation, and it's a variable level fermentation tank. And what's really good about it is that we find that at the end of the growing season, and we've picked all the grapes, we're not quite sure how many we're going to actually get. So to have a fixed capacity tank, you may only just half fill it or whatever, and then you put your lid on top and you've got a whole massive bit of air above, which will probably promote the acids that you don't want, vinegar essentially. So to have a variable floating lid on top, it doesn't matter how much you fill this tank up, you're not going to get any air above it. And they're really good. I got this one from Vigo Ltd in the UK, and this one's a 220 litre container, but as I say, if you only had 100 litres, that wouldn't really matter. And it works like this. So what you're going to do is put all your wine into the tank here, ready for its malolactic bacterial conversion into lactic acid from the malic acid, which I just mentioned. And all you're going to do is lower this lid on the cord here down onto the wine so that it's floating on the top. It means that you've eliminated all the air sitting above it. You can then put your airlock in, and you can beforehand you can also add your oak chips to give it that sort of vanilla-y oaky flavour that is quite attractive in red wine as well. And then all you do is that you take the pump that comes with it, and then you literally just pump the sides up. Now on the side here is essentially a rubber tube or an inner tube, and it blows up and it presses against the sides of the tank. And rather helpfully on here, there's a little gauge that tells you when you've got the right pressure, and then you just seal it or lock it in place and walk away. And that's all you do. You can come back periodically and check that it's not losing pressure at all, and off you go. At the bottom of this tank, there's also an outlet. Of course, you need an outlet somehow to get the wine out, and I'll just show you that quickly. Sitting at the bottom here is a threaded outlet here. I'm just going to take the bung out to show you there, and you can fit any, I think it's 3/4 inch BSP fitting there. I will just double check. If I'm wrong, I'll put it on the screen. But attached to that, you can put either stopcocks or pumps or anything, or transfer pumps, things like that, and it just makes the whole lot a lot easier. And so that's what we're going to be using for the red wine this year. So the big 3 bits of kit really are the grape destemmer, the press, and the variable tank. Now, there are a few other things that I perhaps need to mention too during this process. Okay, so whilst not strictly equipment, these things are really handy to have. First of all, I've got a really good cleaner. This is called ChemiPro. I'll put the link in the description where I got this one from. You can also use sodium metabisulfate, which is a really good all-round sterilizer, so that will kill bacteria, viruses, fungal, things like that. I tend not to use the sodium metabisulfate in the must itself. I tend to use the potassium one, and that's just because I'm a bit funny, and lots of other people are a bit funny about adding sodium to things that eventually you're going to consume. So that's why I use potassium rather than sodium. The other thing which, I'm just going to put these down, the other things that you need are yeast, and this one is from Lavin, and it's a 71B yeast. I've found in the past this is quite difficult to get started on its own, so I have got a yeast nutrient to kickstart it before I add it to the must, as it were. So I'm going to perhaps do another video on how to get this yeast started, but you'll need something like that to add. The other really handy thing I've got is one of these sulfur quick tests, and this tests the amount of sulfite in your wine, and there's a legal limit for, I think it's about 250 parts per million is the upper limit if you're going to be selling the wine, and anything over 50 parts per million you've actually got to declare it on the label. So knowing exactly how much sulfite you've got in the wine is a really handy thing to know, and it'll also tell you whether you need to add a little bit more or whether you're already up to the limit so you can't add any more. So that's a fantastic test, and again I'll put that in the description, is exactly where I got it from. But essentially it's like a little titration kit, and you get lots of little sort of chemicals and things like that with test tubes, so your inner chemistry student days will come to the front if you're interested in that type of thing. So yeah, so there's lots of other things. I must confess, I'm not an expert at all when it comes to making wine, especially red wine. I've never done it before, so hopefully in this series of videos I'm going to be learning with you, and I'm going to show you all the things that I do right and wrong, perhaps more importantly the things that I I do wrong, because those are the things we learn from, isn't it? So yeah. Well, I'm sure I've left a few things out, and if I have, then put them in the comments below. Well done for making it this far in the video, and if you want any more information, or maybe a few more background videos and things like that, what we do here, then maybe consider becoming one of our patrons over on the Patreon site, which I'll put in the link here. I'm really, really grateful to all the patrons that have signed up so far. They really, really make this channel, to be honest, and contribute to it all, and I'm eternally grateful, so thank you. Maybe I'll see you over there too. So I hope you have a super week, and until the next one, I'll catch you later, and where we'll be one step closer to harvesting and turning these grapes into wine. Bye for now.